when feeling is completely calmed and centered inwardly in the self, then the yogi, freed from every attachment and desire, attains union with God. A candle flame burns steadily, protected from the wind. Even so is the consciousness of that yogi who has subdued his feelings. The state of complete tranquility, which is attained by yoga meditation, in that state alone does the yogi become immune to grief, even in the face of the greatest tragedy. Our topic today is this inner calmness, the voice of inner silence. Yogananda Ji would love to tell the story of a musk deer in the Himalayas, and how in a certain season the deer would smell the fragrance of musk but not know where the fragrance came from. And frantically he would search everywhere around him looking for where the scent came from. And in desperation finally he falls off a crag of the mountain. And all the time the scent was within him, within glands of his own body. The poet wrote, "Why could you not understand that the fragrance you sought was always with you in your own self? Nothing outside will give us what we all ultimately seek, that voice of inner silence." And like the Gita, the Bible also commands us, "Be still," it says, "and know that I am God." Be still and realize God. It's only through inner stillness that we can know the Lord. He is inner silence. That is his voice. Several times I've been alone in nature, in some of those rare places where you just don't hear any human sounds. And at times there's not any wind, there's not a river, no outward sounds nearby. And yet with all of that outer silence, there is a strong vibration. There's an inner sound that we hear only when it's silent around us. And when we close our ears with our fingers, at first we may hear the sounds of the body, but then we go deeper, we go beyond that, and we're able to hear those inner sounds, that inner vibration of the spine, of the chakras. And Sri Krishna here in the Gita, in this wonderful passage, he spells out very clearly and simply how we can be still, how we can hear that inner voice. Yoga meditation, he says, calm the feelings, free the mind from attachment and desire. The mind becomes still, like a protected flame. And then we're unaffected by any tragedy that may happen outwardly. A few minutes of watching or of controlling the breath will bring us some of that inner stillness. It's really quite simple. We need to simply repeat those practices, remind ourselves. Yogananda ji said, as long as you continue to make the effort, God will never let you down. Calm the feelings. Swami Kriyananda wrote, the moon's reflection on a lake is distorted by ripples in the water, creating a play of shadows and light. So do the ripples of feeling distort the clarity of our perception. To calm the mind, that it reflect the truth as it is, one must calm the waves of reaction in the heart. And only we can cultivate this inner calm within us. We keep that calm candle flame protected, and no wind can blow it out. Outwardly, the lives and times of most of our gurus is really not that different than our own. Yogananda ji lived through 2 world wars and years of economic depression. The outside world crumbles and is rebuilt, and repeatedly it crumbles and is rebuilt. But spirit does not crumble, and spirit never lets you down. And we are that same spirit. We're the inner stillness at the heart of all motion. Outwardly, we build spiritual centers in Delhi, or raise families, or run businesses, but only outwardly. Inwardly, we're anchored in that stillness. After Lahiri Mahashaya received Kriya initiation from Babaji, and after Lahiri was in Samadhi for 7 days, what did he do then? He returned to the office, where he kept the accounts for the British government, for the military accounting department. And at night, he went home, he went within, he had satsang with Trilanga Swami, with Babaji, with Sri Yukteswar, and then 10 o'clock the next morning, he was back in the office doing his accounts. And that's the dilemma that all of us face, to live in the world but not be affected negatively by it. And let's make it a life lived more and more in God, to be the best student or businessman or mother or father that we can, but feel that it is God's power within us. It's only that power that enables us to do all of those things. And so we need to love, we need to serve, and we need to live more in that inner silence. Thank you.
Good morning. There's a story in the Bible that in Jesus' life, he was with his disciples on the Sea of Galilee, which is actually a very large lake. And by California terms, it's not even that large of a lake, but it happens to be a lake big enough that there could be a storm on the lake. And the disciples and Jesus were on the boat, and they had just left one shore and were in the middle of the lake, and Jesus, takes some time to cross the lake, and Jesus had gone to sleep. He'd gone up to the front of the boat and gone to sleep. And just then the wind kicked up and there was a big storm. And the boats were kind of small. There were 12, 13 people on the boat. It was getting a little dicey. The waves were coming up. The wind was very strong. And actually, the disciples grew very afraid for their lives. They thought the boat was going to sink. There were waves coming over the edge of the boat. And so they frantically went up and woke Jesus up and said, Lord, Lord, wake up. We're going to drown. The wind is up. Waves are coming in. We're going to drown. And Jesus looked at them and said, why are you afraid? Am I not here? Because they had already spent quite a bit of time with him, and he'd already been performing miracles, and they had been watching these miracles and experiencing them with him, and they knew who he was. And yet, as the waves came over the boat and the wind was up, they felt afraid for their lives, despite everything they had already experienced. He said, I'm here. How can you be afraid? So then he went to the side of the boat and he commanded the wind, peace, be still. And the wind obeyed. He rebuked the wind, is what they say in the Bible. He rebuked the wind, and the wind became still. And then he said to the disciples, don't you have more faith than this? Because they had been afraid. And so we can look also at the miracles that we have experienced in our own lives through the spiritual path, through the experience of God helping us in so many ways, Guru helping us, changing our lives, transforming our consciousness, changing the lives of members of our family. And think of all the miracles so far that we have experienced and ask ourselves, do we need to be afraid right now? Is God here with us? Is the Guru here with us? Why are you afraid? I am here. And also this chant that we chanted, desire, my great enemy, is giving me lots of trouble, oh my Lord. Desire, my great enemy, with his enemy surrounding me, is giving me lots of troubles. And so we're thinking perhaps during this time of virus, time of coronavirus, we're thinking, I don't really have any desires. But let's think of what desire is. Do we desire it to be different than it is? Are we looking for things to change? Do we wish things were different than they are? That's a desire. And it's giving us lots of trouble. And what does it say? What does Master say in that chant? That enemy I will deceive, remaining in the castle of peace, night and day in thy joy. So that's our job, to remain in the castle of peace, to remember that the Lord is right there in the boat with us. Though the waves are strong, the Lord is there. And he can rebuke the wind at any time. We know of many masters, great masters, that have rebuked the elements. Sri Yukteswar had it rain over masters' kirtan through the hot sands of Puri so that they could walk on the hot desert sands. And so how can we remain in this castle of peace? I think one way not to remain in the castle of peace is to keep tuning in constantly to the news, on television, on the internet, through the newspapers, because if we're going to really want to understand what's happening in this world, who are we going to turn to understand? The media? Or even if we turn to those in our family, do they know? Master said, don't look to the prejudices roused within you by your habits and the environmental influences of your family, your country, or the world, but to the guiding truth within. What's that guiding truth within? When we become calm, when we become still, when we remain in the castle of peace, It's our intuition that speaks to us. It allows us to directly perceive the truth, to have our own experience, our own intuitive experience of what's really happening. So we need to ask ourselves, what is really happening? You know, there's a phenomena happening in the world right now. It's affecting the whole planet. It's affecting us individually. And when the great avatars are born onto the world, they come for us. They come for the world, for world-changing missions. And they also come individually for us. So when these big world changes come, they come for the evolutionary of the planet. And they also come for our own evolution, for our own growth. And we have to say, what is really happening here? And go inside and ask, what is happening? Maybe they're asking us to be still and go inside and quit looking outside for our security, quit looking outside for our happiness, for our joy, but remain in the castle of peace. Swami says, the intellect eventually tires of its ever questioning, ever disputing, never contented consort, reason. If a person turns from a life of endless reasoning to embrace soul wisdom, he will enable his inner faculty of intuition. So, as Keshava was saying also, you know, how do we listen to that inner voice of silence, the whispers from eternity that are trying to reach us, and not only tell us really what's going on, but give us comfort and peace and guide us through these turbulent times, guide us through the storm, remind us to keep God with us all the time. And one of the ways is to go deep within. You know, as Jesus could rebuke the wind, and Master could rebuke the elements, Sri Yukteswar could rebuke the elements. Let's think of the elements and the chakras within us. We need to still the fluctuating movement of Maya from our senses, bringing that energy into our inner center, but within our center itself, every chakra, it's like we need to still the prana that's vibrating there. This universe was created from the silence with Om. Out of the silence came the sound of vibration. Out of the darkness came the light. God created this universe, and with those elements, even within our chakras, they are vibrating. And that element at the base of our spine, the Moonladora Chakra, just talking a couple points of yoga here, is that earth element. It's the one that's most committed to matter, that's most committed to form, to resistance of change. It's also that Kundalini power that just rests at the base of our spine saying, no, please, don't let anything change. But we know if we're going to grow, something needs to change. So if we can get to that stillness at the center of our Moonladora Chakra, at the base of our spine, and direct that energy upward, what do we have? We have courage. We have loyalty to the truth, that we understand everything is happening for our own good. Same thing with the next chakra up. It's the water element. Just like Jesus could also calm the waves, calm the sea. If we can still and turn upward that prana that's ever fluctuating at the Swadhisthana chakra, we can become flexible and accept what God is giving us at any time and be intuitive and find solutions. So we want to get into that chakra. How do we get into those chakras? Listen. Go into the inner silence. The masters have given us all the most practical techniques. And what we must do is use them and practice them. So listening to Om. What about the Manipur Chakra? If that Manipur Chakra is restlessly moving and going out into the world or going down through the spine, we're going to try to keep hold of all these fixed elements in our lives and try not to let them change. We're going to try to control everybody and everything around us. But if the energy becomes still, we listen, direct that energy up through the Manipur Chakra at the navel. What do we have? We have control of ourself, self-control, self-discipline, and do these very simple practices that they've given us. Because in that chant that we just chanted, control the prana. You will not have to fear anymore. Control the little pranayam. Become all-pervading pranayam. What is there to fear? And from the heart, we need to purify the heart. Intuition can only come to us if our heart has been purified. That's what Master told us. So instead of letting that heart be restless and want this, I need this, I want this, I don't like that, I reject this situation. If that energy is just flowing down, if it's flowing out, we will be troubled. He's giving us lots of trouble, oh my Lord. But that enemy we will conquer through discipline, through willpower, through this very practical teachings. You know, yes, they are great masters, but they have given us very easy, simple, practical teachings. All we have to do is follow their guidance, and we become fearless like them. Purify our hearts. And what about the Vishuddha Chakra? If we continue to let that restlessness of the Vishuddha Chakra, I'm restlessness, I don't want to stay home, or I'm bored, I'm so bored. If we bring that energy in, if we still the energy, the fluctuating energy at the Vishuddha Chakra, and draw the energy up, what do we have? We have expansion into the infinite. We have calmness, ever-expanding calmness like the lake. Think of the lake that Jesus calmed with one phrase, peace, be still. Peace, be still. And at the spiritual eye, the Moonladora and the medulla and the spiritual eye, offering our ego, our little self, up into the infinite through that doorway. Just offer ourselves. God is in charge of our lives. We're not in charge anyway. But as long as we keep thinking that we're in charge, we will suffer. We will have so many troubles surrounding us. But if we remember day after day that He's the one that holds the keys to our happiness. He's the one that has control of the elements. God is the one in control of this planetary evolution. And let's go with that flow and let's surrender ourselves. How do you want me to behave? What do you want me to do? Guide me. And we surrender ourselves at His feet, and all is well. Night and day in thy joy, O my Lord. Krishna in the Gita is driving Arjuna's chariot. And he tells Arjuna, calm yourself, calm the senses. Just like Keshava was reading that quote, you know, like protect the candle flame. Let it become still. And then you will achieve victory. Master says, meditate. Bring that stillness into your daily life. Find that stillness. And after meditation, try to take that stillness into your next activity. Maybe try to find an activity that's not so mental. Like doing the dishes or sweeping the floor or taking a bath. And keep that stillness with you. Throughout the day, remind yourself of that stillness, of that inner voice of silence. And listen, listen. What is the Lord telling me? Peace, be still, be calm. Listen before you have to make a big decision. Get still. Yogananda says, the advanced yogi, withholding all his mind, will, and feeling from false identification with bodily desires, uniting his mind with superconscious forces in the spinal spheres, thus lives in this world as God has planned, not impelled by impulses from the past, nor by new witlessnesses of fresh human motivations. Such a yogi receives fulfillment of his supreme desire, safe in the final haven of inexhaustible, blissful spirit. Joy to you.